I left after my stepmom and her spoiled daughter took over the house. Then I found out mom put the house in my name, so I returned, evicted them, and made sure they could never walk in again. I'm 19 female. And before everything went to hell, life was simple. It was me, mom, and dad in the same house I grew up in. Mom was the kind of person who made everything feel safe. You know, that kind of warmth where even silence feels peaceful. That was her. Then came the cancer. It started small. Tiredness, weight loss. Nothing serious. At least that's what we told ourselves. By the time we faced the truth, it was already late. I took time off school for a semester and started helping her around the house. I'd make her breakfast, help her to the porch to get some sun, and pretend everything was fine because she didn't like seeing anyone worry. Even on bad days, she'd smile and tell me I'd make some guy really lucky one day because I never complained. Mom passed away in early spring. I was next to her bed when it happened. She squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. I remember her whispering, "Promise me you'll keep the house warm." I didn't understand what she meant then, but I said yes, because that's what she wanted to hear. The funeral was quiet, small, the way she wanted. I gave the eulogy because Dad said he couldn't get through it without breaking down, which was funny because he didn't look broken, not even close. He looked detached, almost rehearsed. I caught him talking to this woman, a fake smile plastered on like she was running for office. He introduced her as Claire, an old friend. Old friend, huh? She was at my mom's funeral wearing red lipstick and heels. Who does that? I remember her touching Dad's arm when she said goodbye. It wasn't friendly, it was familiar. I didn't say anything, though. Everyone grieves differently, right? I figured maybe she was someone from work trying to comfort him. Weeks passed, and things got weird fast. The house was too quiet. Meanwhile, Dad started changing. He was cheerful again, like weirdly cheerful, humming in the mornings, making coffee for two, shaving daily, like he suddenly cared again. Then came the night that flipped everything. I was at the kitchen counter finishing homework. He walked in humming that same stupid tune, wearing a new shirt that didn't even look like his style. He sat down across from me with this awkward grin like he couldn't wait to tell me something. "Daughter," he said, "I have good news. I'm getting married." I froze. Married to who? He said it so casually, like he was announcing we were getting takeout. "Claire, you remember her from the funeral? She's been a friend for a long time, and we've realized life's too short not to be happy." I just stared at him. "Mom's been gone a month." He nodded. "Exactly. And she'd want me to move forward. Claire's been there for me through a lot." Through a lot? Through what? My mom's funeral. The last few weeks of pretending he was grieving. I didn't even have words. I laughed. One of those dry, disbelieving laughs that slip out before you can stop them. He frowned like I was the disrespectful one. "Don't start, daughter. You'll understand when you're older. Claire makes me feel alive again." I didn't argue. I just said, "Good luck." Packed my books and went upstairs. But in my head, something snapped. Because from that moment, I knew this wasn't about love or grief. It was about convenience. Dad didn't mourn Mom. He replaced her. And I had no idea just how fast he'd try to erase her memory completely. And that's where everything started falling apart. 2 weeks after Dad dropped the "I'm getting married" line, Claire and her daughter Brittany rolled into the driveway like they owned the place. No warning, no conversation, just a moving truck and fake smiles. They came in all loud and chirpy, rearranging furniture before even saying hi. Claire's voice carried through the house like she was auditioning for a reality show. "This corner is too dark. Let's move the couch here. Oh, and this rug is depressing." Brittany trailed behind her, scrolling her phone and rolling her eyes at everything, muttering, "This house is so old-fashioned." It didn't take long before the place stopped feeling like home. I told myself to keep cool, that maybe they just needed time to adjust. But then I found the breaking point. I was cleaning out the trash bin by the garage and saw it. Mom's favorite framed photo. The one of her holding me as a baby, smiling. The glass was cracked, the frame dented, tossed on top of banana peels and old mail. My hands actually shook when I picked it up. That picture used to hang in the hallway. I stormed into the living room holding it up. "Who threw this out?" Claire looked up from her laptop, calm as a statue. "Oh, that old thing. It fell off the wall. The frame was broken." "Then you could have fixed it," I snapped. She shrugged. "We're redecorating. It didn't fit the new vibe. Brittany snorted, not even looking up from her phone. Yeah, it's kind of depressing anyway. I stared at them, waiting for someone to realize how messed up that sounded. Nothing. Just silence and entitlement filling the air. I set the frame down on the table. That's my mom. You don't get to call her depressing. Claire's voice turned sugary. Sweetheart, no one's disrespecting your mother, but this is our home now too. You need to accept some changes. Our home, I said. You've been here 2 days. Brittany muttered something under her breath. I caught the words, Mama's girl. I clenched my fist but walked away because I knew if I stayed I'd say something I couldn't take back. Later that night I was scrolling through my feed when I saw it. Brittany had posted a picture of herself in front of the living room captioned, Finally making this place livable. R.I.P. to the creepy decor. The creepy decor. That was my mom's stuff. Her favorite vase. Her framed artwork. I didn't even think. I walked straight downstairs. Claire was watching TV. Brittany was on the couch laughing at her phone. I snatched it right out of her hand. Delete that now, she gasped, jumping up. Give that back. Delete it first, I said, calm but firm. You think it's funny mocking my mom? Claire stood up. You don't touch my daughter's things, young woman. I looked at her. Then maybe teach her not to act like a spoiled brat. Brittany shouted, You can't talk to me like that. Oh, I can, I said. You're living in my house. Claire's face twisted. Watch your tone. I watch your actions. I shot back, throwing away my mom's pictures, posting garbage about her online. You're guests here, not royalty. That's when Dad walked in. He froze at the sight of me standing there, Brittany crying fake tears, Claire pretending to be scared. What the hell is going on? He demanded. Claire ran to him. Your daughter's out of control. He grabbed Brittany's phone and started yelling. I laughed. Yeah, because your angel was trashing Mom online. Dad's face went red. Don't talk about your stepmother like that. Step dash question mark. You've been married for what, a week? She's not my mother and she never will be. He stepped closer, pointing at me. You will respect her. Respect is earned, not handed out to whoever you bring home, I said. Before I could blink, his fist connected with my cheek. The sound was louder than the pain. Claire gasped, but not out of shock, more like satisfaction. Brittany froze. I stood there, hand on my face, feeling the sting spread. Then something in me just snapped. I swung back and hit him square in the jaw. He stumbled back, eyes wide. You hit me. Yeah, I said, voice shaking but steady. Guess you raised me. Well, Claire shouted. You're insane. I turned to her. No, just done letting you two clowns walk all over me. Dad tried to speak, still holding his jaw. You think you can talk to me like that in my house? I wiped the blood from my lip and looked him dead in the eye. Your house. You lost every right to call it yours when you started treating her memory like trash. He didn't answer, just stood there, breathing heavy, like he didn't recognize the person standing in front of him. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. You know what? Keep your new little family circus. I'm out. Claire yelled something about needing boundaries. Brittany muttered another insult. I didn't even turn around. I walked straight out, got in my car, and drove to my best friend Tyler's house. He didn't even ask questions, just handed me a spare blanket and let me crash on the couch. That night, I stared at the ceiling, cheek throbbing, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Done trying to fit into a home that wasn't mine anymore. 2 days later, I'd have to face them again. But this time, it wouldn't end with just words. I went back home around noon, hoping maybe things had cooled down. I'd had time to think, and part of me still believed Dad might realize he'd crossed a line. I didn't expect an apology, but maybe at least a conversation. When I pulled into the driveway, though, something felt wrong right away. Inside the living room looked like a completely different house. The family photos that used to line the hallway gone. The walls were bare except for one giant framed selfie of Claire and Brittany smiling like they'd won a prize. My stomach dropped. I rushed upstairs already knowing. When I opened my bedroom door, I froze. My room, my space, my stuff, everything was gone. The bed, desk, posters, even the bookshelf Mom and I built when I was 12. The walls were painted pink, and Brittany's clothes were everywhere. She was lying on the bed, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong. Hey, I snapped. What are you doing in my room? She barely looked up. My room actually. Mom said you moved out. I stepped inside. Moved out. I went to my friend's for 2 days. Where's my stuff? She smirked. Oh, you mean the junk Mom said she sold most of it? I could feel my pulse in my ears. You threw away my things? Brittany shrugged. Relax, it was old stuff. I needed space. I turned and stormed downstairs calling for Dad. He was in the kitchen drinking coffee like it was any normal morning. Claire was beside him flipping through a magazine. When they saw me, both froze like they didn't expect me to come back. What did you do to my room? I demanded. Dad sighed like I was being dramatic. We made some changes. You haven't been staying here and Brittany needs her own room. You can keep your stuff in the attic. I laughed, disbelief spilling out. You sold my things and gave her my room after punching me. Are you even hearing yourself? Claire stood up slowly, that fake calm look plastered on her face. Before you accuse anyone, maybe you should explain something first. I glared at her. Explain what? She crossed her arms. My jewelry is missing. The diamond necklace my mother gave me. It disappeared the day you left. Care to explain that? I stared at her speechless for a second, then actually laughed. Are you serious right now? Dad stood up, his voice hard. Claire, are you sure? She nodded like she'd rehearsed it. Positive. I checked everywhere. The only person who came in or out was her. I looked at both of them. You know I didn't take anything. You both know that. Dad didn't even flinch. If you're hiding it, now's the time to return it and apologize. Apologize? I said, stepping closer. You're backing her over your own daughter. You think I need her fake jewelry that bad? Claire gasped like she had been slapped. Fake? Yeah, I said. I saw that thing. It's shinier than tinfoil. Dad slammed his cup down. Enough. You don't talk to her like that. I stared him down. You know what I'm done pretending you don't see through her lies. You know I didn't steal anything, but you'll still stand there and protect her because you're too weak to admit you picked the wrong woman. His face went red. Watch your mouth. No, I said calm this time. You watch yours. You hit me. You trashed Mom's memory, and now you're accusing me of being a thief. You've hit a new low. Claire stepped closer to him, her hand on his arm. You see, she's aggressive just like last time. Dad turned cold like he flipped a switch. You know what, if you can't respect this family, then you shouldn't be part of it. I blinked. You're kicking me out for something I didn't even do. You've made it clear you don't want to live under my roof, he said. So leave, and don't come back until you've learned some respect. Respect? I said, laughing again. You lost mine the second you threw Mom's picture in the trash. He didn't respond. He just walked to the door and opened it like he was holding it for a stranger. Get out. Behind him, Claire and Brittany stood together, both smiling just enough to show they were enjoying this. That smug, satisfied look burned into my head. I grabbed my duffel bag from the hallway closet, the only thing they hadn't touched, and started throwing whatever I could find inside. A few shirts, my laptop, some photos I managed to save from the trash. As I zipped it up, I looked at them one last time. You'll regret this, I said quietly. Both of you. Claire smirked. You sound just like your mother. That one almost made me swing again, but I didn't. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I just turned and walked out. Outside, I sat in my car for a few minutes trying to breathe. Everything felt unreal, like my entire childhood had been erased in a single week. I called Uncle Ted. When he picked up, I couldn't even speak at first. He just said, "You can come here, daughter. Don't explain anything. Just drive." So I did. The ride to his place was quiet except for the sound of the wind through the cracked window. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw my house getting smaller behind me. The house Mom told me to keep warm. By the time I reached Uncle Ted's driveway, something inside me clicked. The sadness faded. It wasn't grief anymore. It was anger. Controlled, focused anger. If they wanted me gone, fine. But one day they'd remember exactly whose house that really was. When I got to Uncle Ted's place, he didn't even ask for details at first. He opened the door, saw my face, and just said, "Come in, kid." Once I calmed down, I told him everything. He sat there in his armchair, arms crossed, shaking his head the whole time. When I finished, he leaned back inside. I wish I could say I'm surprised, he said, but I'm not. Your dad's been the same since the day he met your mom. I frowned. What do you mean? Ted looked toward the window like he was thinking back years. Your mom was the responsible one. She worked 2 jobs when you were a kid. Your dad, he just knew how to spend. When your mom inherited money from her parents, guess who used it to pay off his credit cards and buy that car he didn't need? I blinked. Wait, mom paid for the car? He nodded. Yep. And the house too. At least most of it. She handled the mortgage while he handled the excuses. I never said much back then because she didn't want me to. She said she had it under control. But your mom was too kind for her own good. She kept that house running while he drained her. Hearing that made my blood boil. All the years I thought Dad was the steady one, the provider. Turns out Mom was the reason we never fell apart. Uncle Ted must have noticed my silence because he added, Look, you don't have to worry. You're safe here as long as you need. But knowing your dad, he'll try to crawl back into your life when it benefits him. He always does. He was right. A few quiet weeks went by. I focused on school, helped Ted with errands, tried not to think about the house too much. Then one afternoon I got a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was calm but firm. Hello, is this Sandra? My name's Mr. Harland. I'm your mother's estate lawyer. I'd like to meet with you and your uncle at your earliest convenience. It's regarding your mother's will. My stomach tightened. I agreed to meet him the next day. Mr. Harland showed up at Uncle Ted's place right on time. He laid out some papers on the dining table, and I swear just seeing my mom's name on the documents made my throat tighten. He looked between us and said, I'll get straight to the point. Your mother's estate has been settled. The house you grew up in, she left it entirely to you. I blinked. Wait, the whole house? He nodded. Yes, it was solely in her name. Your father's name isn't listed on any ownership documents. She transferred everything legally about a year before her passing. You are now the full legal owner. Uncle Ted leaned forward. Hold on. That house was hers. Mr. Harland adjusted his glasses. Yes. Your sister Sandra's mother refinanced the house in her name alone after your brother-in-law's debts piled up. She wanted to ensure the property couldn't be misused. She also wrote a specific clause in the will stating, your father has no claim to it. For a few seconds, I couldn't even speak. It felt unreal, like my mom had reached out from the grave to pull me out of the fire she knew was coming. I asked quietly, did she say why she did that? Mr. Harland nodded. She said, and I quote, I want my daughter to have something no one can take away from her. She made me promise to deliver these documents directly to you when you turn 19. I had just turned 19 a couple of weeks earlier, so when he said, now that you're 19, it actually clicked. Mom had timed it perfectly. I stared at the papers, then at Uncle Ted. She knew. He nodded slowly. She knew exactly what your dad was capable of. The lawyer explained everything. How the property transfer made the ownership airtight. How she'd preemptively protected it from any contest by having multiple witnesses and a notarized letter. It was like she'd predicted every move my dad would make. When Mr. Harland left, Uncle Ted just sat back, whistling under his breath. Your mom was a genius. She saw it all coming. The next day, the news spread fast. Dad somehow found out, probably through the lawyer's courtesy notice, which he was required to send. My phone started buzzing nonstop. Text from Dad himself. We need to talk. You're being manipulated. This isn't what your mother would want. Typical guilt tactics. Then came the voicemail. Daughter, Dad said, his tone fake calm. I just got this ridiculous notice. Your mother's lawyer says the house is in your name. That's nonsense. We built that home together. You need to call him and fix this before it goes too far. I didn't call him back. The next day, he showed up at Uncle Ted's house, didn't even knock, just walked up to the porch yelling my name. Ted stepped outside first, calm as ever. You got 5 seconds to leave before I call the cops, he said. Dad ignored him, pointing at me behind him. You think this is fair? That house is mine too. I walked out and crossed my arms. No, it's not. Mom made sure of that. He laughed like I was some stupid kid. You think a piece of paper means anything? I can contest this. Go ahead, I said. Mom's lawyer already said the wheel's airtight. You'll lose before you even start. He looked like he wanted to explode. You're choosing your uncle over your own father. I'm choosing the truth, I said flatly. Something you haven't told in a long time. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You really think you can take me on? I smirked. Already did. Uncle Ted stepped between us, not flinching. Get off my property, or I'll make that call. Dad finally backed away, muttering something about lawyers and ungrateful kids. His car screeched out of the driveway a minute later. I stood there watching the dust settle, and for the first time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady. Mom had played chess while everyone else was playing checkers. Uncle Ted patted my shoulder. Told you your mom always had a plan. Yeah, she did. And now it was my turn to carry it out. A week after the confrontation, I got another call from Mr. Harland, Mom's lawyer. His tone was formal, but I could tell there was something new he hadn't mentioned before. There's another detail in your mother's estate, he said. I think it's time we discuss it in person. Uncle Ted and I met him again at the same dining table. He opened a folder and placed another set of documents in front of me. Your mother didn't just leave you the house, he said. She also set up a small trust fund in your name. It's not huge, but it's enough to help you if you ever find yourself in a difficult spot. Your uncle is the trustee, which means he'll manage it until you're 21. I sat back processing it. Even in her final months, Mom was planning every move like she already knew the storm that was coming. The woman was a quiet genius. When the lawyer left, Uncle Ted just shook his head. Your mom really thought of everything. She even told me not to mention the trust unless the lawyer brought it up. Said it would protect you from temptation. Now I get what she meant. Your dad, he wasn't wrong. The next few days were calm. Almost too calm. But quiet doesn't last long when you've got a family that feeds on gossip. The moment Dad realized he couldn't legally touch the house, he switched tactics. The guilt campaign began. First came the texts from random relatives, people I hadn't heard from in years, suddenly acting like they cared. You should talk to your father. One aunt wrote, he's heartbroken. Another cousin texted, your dad's going through so much stress. Be the bigger person. Then came the guilt bombs. Your poor father gave you everything and you repay him by taking his home. Or, you're young. You don't understand what marriage means. Please. These people didn't call when Mom was sick, didn't show up at the hospital, didn't even bring flowers to the funeral. Now suddenly, they're family ambassadors for Dad's feelings. I ignored most of them, but some messages were pure comedy. My favorite one was from an uncle who said, you're setting a bad example for the younger cousins. I replied, cool, I'll tell them not to marry gold diggers. Uncle Ted laughed for 5 minutes straight when he saw that, but then things escalated. Claire decided she wanted to play the victim online. One morning, Uncle Ted called me over with his phone in hand. You might want to see this, he said. On Facebook, Claire had posted this long, dramatic paragraph about how her stepdaughter had stolen her jewelry before running away, and how she and my dad were heartbroken over how I'd turned out. The post had photos of the same cheap necklace she'd accused me of stealing with some of her friends, commenting things like, so sorry you're dealing with that, and teenagers can be so cruel. But the internet is a funny thing. It doesn't take long for lies to backfire. Mom's side of the family saw it, and they didn't stay quiet. My Aunt Clara, Mom's older sister, commented first. Claire, that's bold considering everyone knows you made that up. You accused a grieving kid of theft to cover your own behavior? Shameful. Then my cousin Lily followed up with, we have screenshots from the day your daughter posted that disgusting caption about her mom. Maybe you should delete this before you embarrass yourself more. By the time I checked the post myself, Claire had already limited the comments and edited her caption 3 times. Then, within the hour, she took it down completely. But the fallout didn't stop there. Dad called Uncle Ted's phone the next evening, furious. I could hear his voice through the speaker before Ted even answered. You tell her to stop this nonsense online, Dad barked. Claire's being humiliated because of your side of the family. Uncle Ted leaned back in his chair, completely unbothered. Then maybe Claire should stop lying on the internet, he said calmly. Your problem, not ours. Dad kept yelling until Ted hung up mid-sentence. That was the moment I realized something important. Their control was gone. The narrative wasn't in their hands anymore. Every time they tried to twist the story, it backfired. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. I thought the drama had finally died down and it was time to claim what was mine, Mom's house. But turns out, Mom still had one more move left to play. The one that changed everything I thought I knew. It started when Aunt Clara called me one afternoon out of nowhere. "Can we talk in person?" she asked. "It's about your mother." I met her at a small diner outside town. She was already sitting at a corner booth when I walked in. She looked up, gave me this sad little smile. I sat down. "You said you needed to talk about Mom." She nodded slowly. "I should have said something sooner, but your mom made me promise not to until you were ready. But I think it's time you knew." Something about her tone made my stomach twist. "Knew what?" She took a deep breath. "Your dad cheated on your mom with Claire." I just stared at her. "You're saying this started before Mom died?" She nodded. "Before she even got real sick. I caught him once. They were together at a restaurant sitting close, holding hands. I confronted him privately, but he brushed it off and said, Claire was just a friend. Your mom found out eventually. Lily told her after seeing them together too. But your mom, she didn't want to fight anymore. She was already battling cancer and she didn't have the strength left to deal with your father's betrayal." I didn't even realize I'd clenched my fist until my knuckles turned white. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those work trips, the late nights, the fake calm at the funeral, it all lined up too perfectly. Aunt Clara reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "She knew what was happening, sweetheart, but she didn't want you to see it. She told me once, 'I just want peace for him when I'm gone.'" When I finally found words, they came out low and sharp. "Uncle Ted needs to hear this." That night, I told him everything. He didn't look shocked, more like a man who finally heard confirmation of something he'd always suspected. "I figured as much," he said quietly. "Your mother mentioned once that she had things she couldn't talk about. She said she left something with me to give you one day." He walked into his study and came back holding a small steel safe, the kind you'd keep documents in. It was old, scratched, but heavy. He placed it on the table and said, "She gave me this about a month before she passed. Told me not to open it, that it was for you when the time felt right. I think today's that day." My hands shook a little as I turned the dial and opened it. Inside were a velvet box and an envelope with my name written in Mom's handwriting. I hadn't seen her writing in months, but seeing it again nearly broke me. Uncle Ted quietly stepped out of the room. "Take your time," he said. I opened the box. Her jewelry, the gold bracelet she wore every Sunday, her wedding ring, the little cross pendant she never took off until chemo made it too uncomfortable. The sight of them hit harder than I expected. Then I opened the letter. Her handwriting wavered like she wrote it during her last days. But every word was steady, intentional. "My sweet girl, your father wasn't the man you thought he was. He called me useless when I got sick. He said I was a burden. And when I couldn't get out of bed, he brought Claire into our home while you were at school. I pretended not to see it because I wanted my last days to be peaceful. You were my peace. You were my reason to keep fighting. You deserve better than the pain he caused me." By the time I reached the end, the paper was damp with tears. I didn't cry loud, just sat there quiet, breathing hard. The kind of pain that burns without sound. But under that pain, something else was there. Something sharp and cold. Anger. The kind that doesn't go away with time. I reread the part where she said she pretended not to see it. That one line made everything click. He didn't just cheat, he humiliated her. He let her fade away believing she wasn't enough while he played house with someone else. When Uncle Ted came back, I handed him the letter silently. He read it once, his jaw tightening. "That bastard," he muttered. "She was dying and he was already replacing her." I nodded. "He's not getting away with it." Ted looked up at me. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I said, that mom built her plan to protect me. It's my turn to finish it." He didn't argue. He just gave me this proud little nod, the kind that said he understood. Dad wanted me gone. He took everything from her. And now I had the one thing he couldn't buy back: control. It was time to use it. I spent the next week meeting with Mom's lawyer and Uncle Ted. We gathered every document, every deed, every signed paper with her name on it. The ownership transfer, the notarized will, the letters from witnesses, everything. The lawyer said there was no legal gray area left. The house was mine. Period. I didn't want to sneak around or play games. I wanted them to see my face when the truth hit. So, I went back. When I pulled up to the driveway, Claire's car was parked crooked again like always. Brittany's was there too, covered in glittery stickers that made me roll my eyes. I walked up the steps with the lawyer beside me, holding a folder thick enough to crush what was left of their little fantasy. Dad opened the door halfway and froze. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to finish what Mom started," I said. He snapped. "You don't belong here anymore." The lawyer stepped forward, polite but firm. "Actually, Mr. Larson, she does, legally speaking. This property belongs entirely to my client. Your late wife's name was the only one on the title, and her will grants full ownership to your daughter." Claire appeared behind him, arms crossed. "That's ridiculous. This is our home." I pulled out the signed deed and dropped it on the entry table. "Not anymore." Brittany came down the stairs wrapped in one of Mom's old knitted blankets. I didn't even think. I just pointed at it. "Put that back in the linen chest. It's my mother's." She rolled her eyes. "You can't tell me what to—" "Yes, I can," I cut in. "This is my house legally, and right now you're here against the owner's wishes." Claire turned red. "You wouldn't dare throw us out." "Watch me." The lawyer started reading the eviction notice out loud, every word hitting them like a hammer. Dad's face went pale and Claire tried interrupting, but the lawyer didn't even look at her. When he finished, I stepped forward. "You've got until the date on that notice to pack up and leave." I said, "That's your formal notice. If you're still here after that, I'll file the eviction in court and the sheriff will make sure you're out." Dad clenched his fists. "You can't do this. You're making a huge mistake. Your mother was." He hesitated, then said the one thing he shouldn't have. "She was mentally unstable near the end. You can't trust what she said." I felt everything inside me go cold. "Say that again." He looked nervous now. "She was sick. Sandra, the medicine made her confused. She didn't mean to cut me out." I stepped closer until I could see his eyes shake. "I saw her letter. She was more clear-headed than you'll ever be. She knew exactly who you were, a selfish coward who cheated on his dying wife and then tried to erase her. You think calling her unstable changes what you did?" Claire tried to interrupt. "You don't know the full story." "Oh, I know enough." I said, "She caught you sneaking around with him before she died, didn't she? That's why you rushed into this marriage. You couldn't even wait until her funeral flowers wilted." Her mouth fell open, but no words came out. Dad's voice cracked. "We made mistakes, but you can't just destroy your own family over." "You destroyed it," I said. "Mom built this home. You poisoned it. Now you can live with the consequences." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but I knew fake guilt when I saw it. She grabbed Brittany's arm. "We're not leaving without a fight." "Then you'll be leaving with the sheriff," I said simply. Dad looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. "You've changed," he muttered. "Good," I said. "Means I'm nothing like you." Oh, that was enough to push them into action. They packed slowly, angrily, but they packed. I stood by the door watching them load the car with every bit of junk they'd brought in. Claire made a point of slamming every drawer and muttering insults under her breath. Brittany glared the whole time like I'd ruined her princess life. When they were finally done, Dad turned to me. His voice cracked again, this time weaker. "Please, daughter. We can fix this." "You had years to fix it," I said. "You chose her over Mom, over me, over everything. Now you can live with that choice." They left. No goodbye, no final words, just silence as their car disappeared down the road. The moment they were gone, I called a locksmith. Within an hour, every lock in the house was changed. The air felt lighter, like the walls themselves were relieved. I walked through each room, taking in the emptiness. The pink paint in my old room didn't last. Ted had painters scheduled, and within a couple of days, it was back to how Mom had it. A few days later, the stories started spreading. Apparently, Claire and Dad didn't last long after the eviction. Word got around fast thanks to a few relatives who finally saw the truth. Claire left him when she realized he had nothing left. No house, no savings, no reputation. She tried cozying up to some guy from her old job, but everyone already knew who she was. The affair story spread fast and nobody wanted to be seen with her. Brittany followed her lead, posting sad fake deep quotes online about betrayal. Dad tried calling a few relatives for help, but Mom's side wanted nothing to do with him. Even his own brother stopped replying. He was toxic, broke, and alone. Exactly how he left her. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Watching karma quietly do its work was enough. One evening, I walked into the living room and sat down where Mom used to read. The house was quiet again. No shouting, no lies, no pretending, just peace. The sunset poured through the same window Mom used to sit by, painting everything gold. I could almost hear her humming like she used to when she cooked dinner. I smiled, just a small one, and whispered, "You did it, Mom, you really did." She protected me even after she was gone.